Starting off at number 10, not involved in Spare. Royal insiders told Heat magazine that Meghan is left with regrets and wishes she was more hands-on or involved in the process of the tell-all book. Meghan can now see that whether it's fair or not, they are being viewed as these professional whiners, and it's not as simple as her distancing herself because she has to be seen as fully supportive of Harry, they said. She's now regretting that she wasn't more hands-on or involved when he was putting his book together, they added. This theory that she micromanaged what he wrote or had any say in the manuscript is totally wrong. It was Harry's book and she let him get on with it. The same went for his interviews and promo tours. That was evidenced by the fact she let him do those by himself and made a point not to interfere. Harry's long-awaited memoir was all about what people wanted to see behind the cameras, from growing up as a royal to the fallout from leaving with Meghan. It was dubbed the fastest-selling nonfiction book of all time by the Guinness World Records, according to Forbes, and it's only the beginning of his book contract. Number 9, after effects of Memoir. From headlines to word of mouth, we all think we know Harry and Meghan's true story. But there's one book that takes longtime royal fans even more in depth, revealing stories about the couple we only thought we knew. Finding Freedom, Harry and Meghan details the couple's romance, wedding, the birth of their first child, and their decision to take a step back from royal duties. Authors Omid Scobie and Carolyn Durand take us far beyond the picture-perfect moments to the tough decision this couple has had to make in order to preserve their relationship and happiness. And with that book, longtime royal fans may learn more about Harry and Meghan's new path outside of the royal family. Frustrated Meghan Markle is said to blame the damning royal revelations in Prince Harry's Spare memoir for the couple's plunging popularity, according to a source. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex were on a roll until the book came out at the start of the year. It detailed a physical scrap with William and saw Harry brand Queen Camilla as dangerous. At the time, it was reported that Meghan had reservations about the book, and now a source close to the couple has told Heat magazine that she is kicking herself for not being more hands-on. After the humiliating cancellation of the couple's Spotify podcast contract and rumors of a lucrative deal with Dior falling flat, she appears to be placing the blame squarely at her husband's feet for going after his family the way that he did. Number 8, proposal over roast chicken. Meghan claimed that the engagement happened during an average night at Nottingham's cottage where the couple was living at the time. She was cooking roast chicken when Harry popped the question. It was just an amazing surprise. It was so sweet and natural and very romantic, she gushed. He got on one knee. As a matter of fact, I could barely let him finish proposing. I was like, can I say yes now? Kensington Palace admitted that at the time of the engagement announcement, the engagement had previously occurred. His Royal Highness and Miss Markle became engaged in London earlier this month. Harry has informed Her Majesty the Queen and other close members of his family. It said Prince Harry has also sought and received the blessing of Miss Markle's parents. Number 7, her big launch. According to Lowe, the reason why the couple didn't announce their engagement earlier was that they wanted it to become a secret. However, everyone in the royal family knew about it. The interview was in effect Meghan's big launch, she says. The couple were not officially engaged, though everyone in Kensington Palace knew they had been privately engaged since the late summer, but this was Meghan putting herself out there in a confident, proactive way. Number 6, explosive revelations. In Harry's new book Spare, ghostwritten by J.R. Moringer, the Duke of Sussex makes a number of explosive revelations and accusations about his family, in particular about his older brother William. Harry also gave insight into what life was like as a member of the royal family, such as the clothing allowance they all receive and how some members refrain from physical affection. Harry explores the relationship between the royal family and the tabloid media and describes how the royals each have a vested interest in who has made the front cover of each paper. As a result, newspapers are laid out in pretty much every single palace, he explains. Number 5, zero tolerance on physical contact. Harry describes how as a royal they were taught to ensure there was a buffer zone between them and the rest of creation. This filtered its way into the firm itself as there was distance within the family itself as well. He writes, no matter how much you might love someone, you could never cross that chasm between, say, monarch and child or heir and spare, physically but also emotionally. The older generation, he explains, maintained a nearly zero tolerance prohibition on physical contact, with there being only light touching of cheeks on special occasions. In fact, he says there were no hugs, kisses, or pats. Harry added that he couldn't imagine any circumstance under which he could hug the Queen. He felt frustrated by the the fact that he had no control over the way he was treated and reveals how much of his self-worth was dependent on him being able to perform for the public. He writes, "My deepest fear was that there would be no escape from the cycle and that I'd just find myself back in my original cage, even if it was a slightly larger one." Harry also talks about the lack of thank yous he often experienced from the family. Whilst working in LA and being involved in charity work, he said that there wasn't any recognition or thanks for what I did. He writes, "It was more like, we need you to do this, you must do it. There was no appreciation shown for the work and dedication I put into my job, both in my official role and through charity work." On to number 4, free for all at Christmas. Unlike most, the royal family opens their Christmas presents on Christmas Eve, keeping with the German tradition. Each family member stands by their mound of gifts before suddenly opening them all at the same time, pulling bows and tearing wrapping paper in what Harry described as a free-for-all. Although royal protocol and tradition has been instilled since birth, Harry confessed to being slightly nervous about the process and opening gifts in such a unique ceremonial fashion. For those who feel the same way during the holiday season, this story surely serves as a reminder that it's okay to break away from the rules sometimes. Harry himself admitted that Christmas is a time to be slightly rebellious and encouraged his readers to do so too, like swapping out the usual mince pies for something new. There are no shortages of recipes online to get creative with. On to number 3, teenage years. Harry talked about his teenage years spending hours playing the video game Halo under the username Bill and Baz. At their Highgrove residence, deep in the basement, there was once a bomb shelter. He and William spent many of their teenage years in Club H, which stood for Highgrove. The boys' lair was decked with a Persian rug, Moroccan sofas, an electric dartboard, stereo system, and well-stocked drinks and trolley. The brothers would invite around 15 friends around at a time for not-so-innocent drinking of rum or vodka, usually in tumblers, and snogging. Club H was Harry's place of escape, both for when he wanted to act out and for moments of solitude. He talks fondly of the days when he would take refuge in the bomb shelter and barely emerge for 3 days. It was a place where Harry could be himself, away from public scrutiny or royal responsibility. It was also an opportunity to express his creative side, taking on some unusual DIY projects. One such project was turning an old telephone booth into a bar, all done in secret. Of course. Harry brought the bar from an antique shop with the help of some friends, and then they spent hours fitting it out with neon lighting and leather seating. The pièce de résistance was a sign that read "Chez Harry" attached to the entrance, but as soon as palace staff saw it, they knew what the trio were up to and promptly removed it. On to number 2, Suits. Before they met Meghan, Harry claims William and Kate were huge fans of her show Suits and couldn't believe Harry when he told them he was dating a member of the cast. Willie and Kate explained that they were regular, nay, religious viewers of Suits, he wrote per page 6. "All this time I thought Willie and Kate might not welcome Meghan to the family, but now I have to worry about them hounding her for an autograph." When Harry finally got around to watching some of his wife's work for himself, however, he was less amused, writing that he made the mistake of Googling and watching some of her love scenes online. Harry admitted that he didn't need to see such things live. His reaction? Harry also revealed that he had been aware of his wife's engagement to Trevor Engelson for a while before they started dating, though he initially kept his distance. "I knew Meghan was engaged, but until she confirmed it herself, I had no idea who Trevor was," he wrote, adding that they maintained a respectful distance for some time following her engagement. Eventually, though, the former couple got to talking, and as Harry puts it, things quickly heated up. It wasn't long before our conversation turned from polite small talk into something much more interesting and meaningful, he wrote. "We soon became a part of each other's daily lives, and our friendship grew quickly from there." Harry also opened up about his thoughts on royal life and how that affected his relationship with Meghan, writing that in the early days of their romance he was protected by privilege, but I couldn't help but worry about the difference in our backgrounds would be an obstacle to our future happiness. But as he said, as we talked more, I began to realize that this wasn't just a fling, this was a powerful connection between souls. And finally, number 1, Baths at Balmoral. An oddity of Balmoral Castle revealed in Harry's memoir was the water, which perturbed a number of guests. Many would raise the alarm as something appeared to be wrong with the water in the loo, which was brown and resembled a weak tea. However, Harry said his father would put the guests at ease with a smile, explaining that the water was both filtered and sweetened with Scottish peat. The Prince of Wales revealed that it was to give the water a light, heathery aroma as well as its unique color. Such an amazing anecdote has left readers in awe of Harry's father's witty personality and his ability to make light of any situation. Number 10, hiding details about their wealth. The royal family family is under few requirements to disclose details of its wealth, but all I'm gonna say is, if you want to find out, you can. The family's communications with the government are exempt from freedom of information requests, and their official papers are kept secret by Britain's National Archives for at least 50 years. And the lack of transparency has led anti-monarchy groups, including the Republic, to call the monarchy an unaccountable public institution that has the power, secrecy, and influence to willfully abuse its position. Without a change, many details of the royal family's private wealth may never be known. Facts about the Duchy of Lancaster's offshore investments were leaked back in 2017, and those detailed roughly $13 million in offshore accounts. Other reports have suggested questionable foreign dealings or arrangements, with King Charles once being accused of offering to help secure a knighthood for a Saudi national in response to a donation to his charitable foundation. Number 9, Princess Diana's letter. Paul, one of Diana's former butlers, said that the princess predicted her own passing in a car crash. Spooky. Apparently, she was so scared 10 months before she passed that she wrote to Paul saying that there was a plot made by a member of the royal family and that her car brakes would be tampered with and she would suffer serious head injuries, and all of this would be so that the Prince of Wales could marry again. The letter she wrote, "I'm sitting here at my desk today in October, longing for someone to hug me and encourage me to keep strong and hold my head high. This particular phase in my life is the most dangerous. My husband is planning an accident in my car, brake failure, and serious head injury in order to make the path clear for him to marry." So what do they do with this letter? Well, they keep it in a very safe place. And will Charles ever elaborate on this super suspicious note from Diana? Most likely not. But we do need the answers. On to number 8, illegitimate heirs. In 2012, a report surfaced that alleges the Windsors may not be the rightful heirs to the throne at all. The remains of Richard III were discovered 500 years after he passed away, and once examined, researchers learned that he had no living descendants. This implies there was an affair at some point that essentially broke the genetic chain of the monarchy, which could mean quite a few kings and queens weren't actually in line for the throne. Though this report is still just a rumor, it poses an interesting thought. What would happen if the monarchy was suddenly overthrown? We may never know. And despite its possible implications, the story of the broken genetic chain has left many royal fans laughing and shaking their heads. After all, who are we but mere mortals when compared to centuries-old tradition and customs? In other words, long live the royals, at least until further notice. But you can never be too careful. Perhaps Richard III was on to something after all. Number 7, distant mother. Being Queen of England while also being a mom had to have been a tough road to travel, and it's highly likely Queen Elizabeth did her best. However, there are numerous anecdotes, articles, and even books that reference the idea that perhaps her best just wasn't good enough. It seems that Prince Charles and Princess Anne, her oldest 2 children, may have had a very different mother than Prince Andrew and Prince Edward did, possibly to their detriment. Prince Charles was often left in the care of nannies, while his younger brothers were allegedly much closer to their mother. Prince Edward was rumored to have been able to get away with almost anything due to his close relationship with Queen Elizabeth, and that explains why, as an adult, he went on to become a successful TV producer and editor for the BBC after leaving the Royal Navy in 2001. On the other hand, Prince Charles's experience growing up may have had a lasting impact on him. One biographer has said that he still struggles with feelings of abandonment from not having enough attention from his mother when he was young. And it's speculated that this sense of being unloved caused him to be overly needy and even emotionally dependent on his former wife Diana and maybe even Queen Camilla. On to number 6, speaking of the unpopular queen. Camilla was not a popular choice among the general public, and she was also unpopular with royal family members. She was seen by many as an adulterer who had ruined Princess Diana's life. Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a little crowded, Diana famously said. However, Charles was unwilling to give Camilla up again. Charles and Camilla began making public appearances together in 1999, 2 years after Diana's passing. Her stock began to rise gradually, and the relationship between Charles and Queen Elizabeth's sons appeared to be accepted. Despite her opposition, the Queen Mother passed away in 2002. Charles and Camilla got married in a civil ceremony in 2005, and since Diana was thought to have been the Princess of Wales, Wales. Camilla has been referred to as the Duchess of Cornwall ever since she got married. Additionally, on top of that, when Charles took the throne, Camilla was supposed to be known as Princess Consort, but she finessed the title of Queen. And she has also gained popularity. Number 5, Prince Harry. In his most recent memoir, Spare, Prince Harry's portrayal of his stepmother is perhaps the most critical. Despite the fact that Charles and Camilla had been romantically involved on and off for decades, they did get married even after Harry and William begged Charles to reconsider. Prince Harry has not forgotten that Princess Diana referred to Camilla as the third person in her marriage. Harry once said that the tabloids had portrayed Camilla as the villain, and in their union she was the third person and needed to improve her appearance. The two brothers didn't consider it necessary and thought it would do more harm than good. They still wanted their father to be happy, but they never expected them to get married. Harry even stated because of the need for her to rehabilitate her image and the connection she was making within the British media, that made her dangerous. And there was a clear willingness on both sides to exchange information. Given that she was on her way to becoming Queen Consort and that she belonged to a family that was structured in a hierarchical manner, there were bound to be people or bodies discarded in the open. Harry claimed that Camilla and even his father used him or William to get better coverage in the tabloids for themselves. On to number 4, Disapproval from the Queen. The extramarital affair between Charles and Camilla rocked the crown to its core. That is something that is well known by everyone. Queen Elizabeth was furious more than anyone, and for some time, no one was allowed to enter the palace, including Camilla, obviously. On to number 3, Prince William's thoughts on her. It's said that him and Harry were blindsided by their late grandmother's decision to approve of Camilla's title as Queen Consort. According to Christopher Anderson, a royal expert and author, the decision was driving a wedge within the royal family. Since their marriage, Camilla has remained a prominent member of the royal family. However, her stepchildren, Princes William and Harry, have maintained strict boundaries regarding their relationship. Angela Levine, royal author, says that Prince William has made it very clear that the new Queen Consort will never play his late mother, Princess Diana. Camilla was very direct about how his children were with her. William made it clear that Camilla is the wife of his father, but not a step-grandmother to his children. The royal couple's 3 children are aware that they have 2 grandfathers, but only 1 grandmother. She went on to say, William and Harry were respectively 20 and 23 when Camilla became their stepmother officially in 2005. She was more of a sociable adult that they occasionally saw at royal events. Camilla never assumed any responsibility for the children of the Cambridges, especially considering the closeness of Catherine's parents, Carol and Michael Middleton. On to number 2, Just a Mistress. Diana and Charles invited William and Harry into the world respectively in 1982 and 1984, but by 1986, Charles was already throwing down with Camilla. According to Morton and Camilla's biographer Penny Juror, who described Camilla as the most notorious mistress in the world, Diana and Andrew, Camilla's ex-husband, were aware of the affair. In 1986, Diana also started a series of affairs, one of which was with cavalry officer James Hewitt. During a 1995 meeting, Diana confessed to the romance, saying she revered and was enamored with Hewitt. The public perception of Camilla was incredibly negative following Charles and Diana's divorce, and even before the royal divorce, questions lingered about Charles's future relationships because the Church of England did not permit divorced people to remarry as long as their previous spouse was still living. Reporters who covered the royals at the time speculated whether Charles will inflict Camilla on the country as queen, calling it an unwelcome prospect. Charles wanted to introduce Camilla to the world as his girlfriend shortly after the divorce, an effort that was waylaid by Diana's tragic passing. And finally, number 1, the royal family versus Camilla. Even though Charles and Camilla's relationship was very serious, Camilla was viewed negatively, but Diana was received with open arms. Fatal Smith claims that Charles had always treated Camilla as an equal, and Camilla was not wanted by the royal family as its princess. For one thing, she was thought to be an experienced woman, which made her a no-go for the royal family. And on top of that, she wasn't thought to be sufficiently aristocratic to be a princess. So it's no secret or surprise that Diana's 2 sons never truly accepted Camilla once Charles brought her into the family. And although William might be less vocal about his opinion on her, especially as a future king, Prince Harry never held back his feelings about the queen. But number 10, Princess Diana. The top secret revealed by Diana was back in 1995 when the princess agreed to sit down with BBC's Martin Bashir for an exclusive interview. In the interview, Diana opened up about her marriage to Charles and her experiences with the royal family and admitted that she had also had an affair during her marriage. She revealed that Charles's long affair with Camilla made her feel worthless. And she said that she suspected Charles's staff was waging a campaign against her. In addition to her revelations about the royals, Diana also spoke about her struggles with bulimia, postpartum depression, and self-harm. It's really sad to hear how much the charismatic and charming princess was suffering. Hopefully the newer royals have access to more resources to help with their well-being, as should everyone else. After the interview aired, Queen Elizabeth wrote to the couple, who at that point had been separated since 1992, and told them to proceed with their divorce. In the years following the release of the interview, it's been alleged that the BBC showed Diana fake bank statements that claimed they were proof that the media had been paying the royal family for information about Diana in order to convince her to tell her side of the story in the interview. While a 1996 investigation proved inconclusive, in 2021, the BBC revealed that they found interviewer Martin Bashir had acted in a deceitful way to ensure that the interview would happen. And because of that, they returned all awards. The interview special one formally apologized for the actions and vowed to never air the footage again. I mean, as they should. That was a snake move on their part, but drama between the royals and the media is always entertaining for the general public. Number 9, Charles's relationship problems. We all know that the relationship between Princess Diana and then Prince Charles was no secret. So when the news about them breaking up finally went public, many people became interested in them as individuals and as a failed marriage. Number 8, personal funds. Far from opening the royal family's wealth, inherited or otherwise, to scrutiny, astonishingly there appears to be no study of this topic. The Queen successfully lobbied the government to change a draft law in order to conceal her embarrassing private wealth from the public. The Queen was also given a personal exemption from having her private estate searched for stolen or looted artifacts, and her household remained exempt from laws that ban race and sex discrimination. And although it is speculated that her personal wealth amounts to hundreds of millions of pounds, the exact amount is still unknown. The wealth is not all simply historical. It is instructive that the British monarchy gives itself the business name The Firm. Despite all the patriotic songs, it has offshore investments that don't pay taxes like many other global corporations do. On top of that, Charles's mother's inheritance will never be subject to inheritance tax. The most crucial aspect of understanding the British monarchy and the Queen, who recently sat on his throne, is the politics of enormous wealth. Percy Bysshe Shelley, a poet, once said that the monarchy and the royal family serve as only the string that ties the robber's bundle. Their ultimate purpose is to emphasize their rich and powerful right to make decisions. The Queen was one of the largest private landowners in the nation, continuing the earliest forms of feudalism. For the British monarchy, which sprinkles generous doses of charity on the populace while sitting comfortably at the interface of old wealth. Number 7, Princess Anne. From November 1973 to April 1992, Queen Elizabeth's daughter Anne was married to Mark Phillips. The couple had 2 children together. However, it turns out that Mark had a child out of the marriage with Princess Anne. Mark Phillips is said to be the father of a daughter named Felicity, who now lives in New Zealand, but reportedly grew up on the 700-acre estate with Zara and Peter. In the 1990s, Heather Tonkin, her mother, attempted to have Mark claim paternity. He declined, but was simultaneously paying her £6,000 per year for 5 years. Suspicious. Number 6, Prince Philip. After the husband of Queen Elizabeth passed away, his legacy is marred by decades of off-the-cuff, problematic, and racially charged remarks. The British monarchy's longest-serving consort has said things that are offensive on multiple occasions. The Duke, who wed the Queen in 1947, retired from public life in May 2017 at the age of 95, but his remarks that were racist, sexist, or degrading had been dismissed as gaffes for more than 40 years prior. When Philip went to China in 1986, he called Beijing ghastly. Additionally, he told British students, "You'll have slitty eyes if you stay here for a long time." Philip made an offensive observation about Cantonese cuisine in the same year while giving a speech at a meeting of the World Wildlife Fund. He also stated the following to a student who was traveling through Papua New Guinea in 1988. So how did you avoid being eaten? In 1994, he inquired of residents of the Cayman Islands as to whether the majority of them were descended from pirates, and in 2002, he posed the following question to a native leader in Queensland: do you still strike each other with spears? Just upsetting. Number 5, struggling to fit in. Irving pointed to Philip's 1956 tour of Commonwealth countries as evidence of his need for breathing room. He explained it is understandable that as a hot-blooded young buck, as soon as he entered into the orbit of the horrible royal court and all the flunkies telling him what to do, it did not suit him. The fact that he lost his stack and spent 6 months on the boat is not surprising. He wanted to escape the dreadful atmosphere of the court where he felt constrained. But Philip was able to make the job his own over time. He founded awards for design and industry, established an interfaith dialogue, and served as the first president of the World Wildlife Fund UK, in addition to accompanying the Queen on her travels abroad and supporting hundreds of organizations. He later stated that supporting his wife in her role as monarch was his primary responsibility. Philip was eager to embrace television when he joined the British royal family at the same time that it was growing in popularity, and was the first member of the royal family to give an interview on television in 1961, promoting the advantages of technical skills and training. Number 4, hiding family members. While most of the royal family is on display like an art exhibit gone rogue, there have been moments throughout history where they tried to hide away members of the family they didn't deem adequate for the public eye. Prince John was the youngest son of King George V, the Queen's grandfather, and when he passed away at only 13 years old, we didn't hear anything about him again. The young boy reportedly had epilepsy, and the royal family used a familiar tactic to cope, hiding the child from public view. Royal biographer Christopher Wilson has documented that some family trees entirely leave out Prince John's name. And if they feel they have somebody that isn't up to par, they want to rip them out of the history books, which happened in Prince John's case. However, that wasn't the first time the royals had hidden away family for the sake of a public image. Queen Elizabeth's first cousins Nerissa and Catherine Bowes-Lyon were each born with mental impairments and hidden away at the Royal Earlswood Institution for Mental Defectives, and their family also reported the girls passed in 1961 when they really hadn't. Catherine and Queen Elizabeth were born in the same year, but because the family had little to no understanding of navigating mental impairments, they lived incredibly separate lives. Nerissa lived another 25 years after being initially labeled deceased, and Catherine only perished in 2014. Makes you wonder if there are other members of the family who are dealing with this at the moment. What do you guys think? On to number 3, affairs. Diana and Charles had a pretty rocky relationship, and it was never hard to see the lack of chemistry or affection in the couple. Diana was torn after finding out about the long affair Charles was having with Camilla, who is now queen. The extramarital affairs didn't even stop there. Diana confessed that she was also seeing other men during their rocky marriage, and since Charles had already admitted to Diana he was in love with her, it seemed the princess was gonna find affection one way or another. And number 2, Camilla. According to King Charles's biographer, who spoke with Newsweek Royal Report podcast, Queen Elizabeth always detested Camilla and only agreed to give her blessing for the royal to be known as queen because of an unspoken deal behind the scenes regarding Prince Andrew. Camilla first met Charles in the 70s, and the two were in and out of relationships ever since. Charles admitted to adultery when his marriage became irrevocably broken down in 1981, when his marriage to Diana began. And number 1, tax fraud. The family has been exposed numerous times and have been dealing with a number of issues, one of which is tax fraud. The late queen was once exposed for concealing her embarrassing wealth from the public, which may or may not come as a surprise. It was alleged that Queen Liz's private attorney pressed ministers to modify proposed legislation to prevent the public from learning about her shareholdings. Even though the Queen's actual holdings were never made public, we can only assume that they were in the hundreds of millions of pounds range.
Number 10, King Charles dated Princess Diana's sister. It's no secret that Lady Sarah McCorquodale, Princess Diana's eldest sister, had a brief romance with then Prince Charles. But what many people don't know is the strange story behind it all. It turns out that Sarah wasn't quite sure about taking things further with him and made a very memorable statement. "I'd never marry Charles if he were the dustman or the King of England." We can only assume this put an end to any potential between these two, but hey, there's nothing wrong with having standards. After all, Sarah was just looking out for her sister, even if it meant turning down one of the most eligible bachelors in the world. Just goes to show that you and your family always come first. Number 9, when Princess Diana's affair call was leaked. Charles wasn't the only one in his marriage that was unsatisfied. Diana had a boo too. It's just she was better at keeping a secret. In 1992, the world was introduced to the scandalous love story of Princess Diana and James Gilby, or as it became known in tabloid articles, Squidgygate. It all started with a secret taped phone conversation that took place between these two allegedly involved lovers 5 years before their affair was made public. During this call, Gilby called Princess Diana by her pet name, Squidgy, 53 times to be exact, and told her he loved her. When the transcript of this conversation emerged nearly a decade after it had taken place, so began one of the most infamous scandals in British history. Now, almost 3 decades later, we remember this dated drama for its true impact on royal relations. Not many people know this, and I bet Charles would have taken this secret to the grave if he could. At least Diana got her lick back. Number 8, is King Charles Harry's father? The rumor that's been dated back to the 90s is that Prince Harry has another father. It was no secret that Princess Diana had multiple affairs during her marriage to Prince Charles, and even confessed in an interview with BBC to have been having an affair with Army officer James Hewitt. While it may seem like a case of who's your daddy, the internet still can't get over how much Hewitt looks like the prince. Despite all the rumors, we've got one thing right. James Hewitt isn't Prince Harry's real dad. Case closed. However, this will go down as one of history's most dramatic secrets, one which we'll never be able to prove wrong or right. After all, some mysteries are just meant to remain unsolved. Number 7, when Princess Diana threw herself down the stairs while pregnant. Princess Diana struggled while trying to find her place in the royal family, and her mental health needs were not met. The royal family has tiptoed around acknowledging its failures in relation to Princess Diana, but years ago, they flat out blamed her for everything that happened to her. In one chilling report, Princess Diana is said to have thrown herself down the stairs while pregnant with Prince William. She had morning sickness throughout the pregnancy and also struggled with an eating disorder. In the documentary Diana, in her own words, she says, "Charles said I was crying wolf, and I said I felt so desperate and I was crying my eyes out. And he said, I'm not going to listen, you're always doing this to me, I'm going riding now. So I threw myself down the stairs." Unfortunately, Prince Charles didn't seem very bothered. The Queen comes out, absolutely horrified, shaking. She was so frightened. "I knew I wasn't going to lose the baby." Quite bruised around the stomach, Charles went out riding, and when he came back, it was just dismissal. Total dismissal. He just carried on out of the door. What a total jerk. Number 6, Charles and Camilla's secret meetings. Queen consort Camilla reportedly flew by private jet to rendezvous with King Charles III while he was on official overseas visits in the 90s, according to a new documentary. At the time of these alleged flights, Prince Harry and William's was still married to Princess Diana, while Camilla was married to Andrew Parker Bowles. Squadron leader Graham Laurie, formerly Charles's personal pilot, who has logged over 2,000 royal flights, spoke of the pair's meetings. He revealed that they were able to meet up in secrecy when abroad due to a charter aircraft waiting for them on the tarmac before they arrived, and which remained there after their departure. Though Laurie couldn't confirm who paid for Camilla's flights, sources at US broadcaster Paramount claimed at least one trip like this occurred in 1994. Number 5, Interrelations. The royals really like to keep it in the family. Everyone talks about their family tree, but it mostly resembles the number of times their relationships wrap around. When looking back at the reign of Queen Victoria, her 63 years and 216 days of rule became known as the Victorian era, a period even non-history buffs have heard of. The lesser known fact about our dear Vicky though, she married her cousin. The couple first met on Victoria's 17th birthday in April 1836 when she was heir to the British throne, and their uncle, King Leopold I, introduced them. The cousin-loving gene was passed along because as recently as Queen Elizabeth II, it popped back up. The romanticization of Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth's relationship wasn't enough to overshadow their relations like it was with Victoria and Albert. Prince Philip was related to Queen Victoria as a great-great-grandson through his maternal side, and his future wife was related to the same queen through her paternal family. Even weirder though is sibling hopping, which of course has happened to the royal family too. Prince Charles and Princess Diana were married for 15 years, which is impressive considering their relationship's many ups and downs. However, Prince Charles dated Diana's sister first. The future couple was actually introduced by Diana's sister, Sarah, whom Prince Charles dated before beginning his relationship with Diana. While not illegal or technically wrong, that detail about the new king is bizarre. Number 4, they pack their own blood. This little weird tradition started with Queen Elizabeth II and has since been passed down to Charles and even William. They pack supplies of their own blood. When I say the royal family thinks of everything, I mean everything. The scenario of needing a blood transfusion is not impossible, so the late queen would carry around blood. Maybe they have rare blood types, or could it just be that they only trust themselves? Who knows, but having an on-the-go blood supply is definitely not something you would want everyone to know, especially since King Charles is related to Vlad the Impaler. Number 3, King Charles and the Cash for Honors scandal. The king was in hot water just last year in 2022. The CEO of Charles's charitable organization stepped down amid accusations that he helped to secure an honorary title for a major donor. It's alleged that he had been working with paid intermediaries to arrange favors or access to the royal family in exchange for large donations to the foundation. Number 2, King Charles and Jimmy Savile. King Charles seems to be at the heart of most of the scandals relating to the British royal family. In 2022, he was associated with the prolific British youth abuser Jimmy Savile. A Netflix documentary released on April 6th delved into the horrific story of Savile, a man who used his power as a beloved TV personality to cover up decades of abuse against vulnerable people. The Metropolitan Police estimated that the total number of victims was 589, most of whom were youths. His crimes weren't properly investigated until after his passing in 2011, despite decades of rumors and accusations. It seems the royal family always attract a certain crowd. The docuseries Jimmy Savile, a British horror story, bears many revelations, one of which was Savile's close relationship with Charles. Director Rowan Deacon gained access to dozens of letters in which the prince regularly sought guidance from the presenter. Charles first wrote to Savile in 1986, looking for advice on reaching a wider audience. For the next 20 years, Savile served as an unofficial press advisor to the then Prince of Wales. A 1989 letter from Savile outlined his guidelines for how he believed the royal family should publicly respond to significant incidents and disasters, to which Charles responded that he had shared with the Queen. Other sources even suggest that he looked to Savile for informal counseling when his marriage to Princess Diana was falling apart. He was duped, like we all were, Deacon says. The letters show the trust that King Charles put in Jimmy Savile. He was trying to appeal to the British people, trying to modernize, and he saw Jimmy Savile as his conduit to that. In hindsight, that was catastrophic. Number 1, Secret Son? British-born Simon Charles Durante Day claims he is the illegitimate love child of Queen Consort Camilla and King Charles, and has had his requests for a DNA test ignored for years. He was adopted when he was about 8 months old in August 1996 in Portsmouth in the UK, when Camilla would have been 18 and Charles 17. Durante Day claims that as a child, his adoptive grandmother, who worked for the late Queen Elizabeth II, told him on her deathbed that he was Charles and Camilla's son. In the months leading up to his birth, Charles was sent to Australia to study, and Camilla disappeared from the public eye for about 9 months. Mr. Durante Day claims medical procedures were undertaken during his childhood to alter his appearance, including changing his eye color and filing his teeth. In his case, he alleges King Charles and Queen Consort Camilla began their close relationship in 1965, a year before his birth certificate says he was born. Mr. Durante Day claims that Camilla kept him until he was 8 months old, hiding him from the world with the help of the royal family and protection officers, and claims to have been told it was a condition of the adoption that his names Simon and Charles were not changed. However, by 8 months, he was growing too big to hide, and it was arranged for the daughter of a royal household staff member, Mr. Durante Day's adoptive grandmother, to take him under her care. Mr. Durante Day believes his inconsistencies on his birth certificate and his name also prove he is of royal blood, but his timeline of events contradicts official records that say that the new king and Camilla met each other 5 years after Mr. Durante Day's birth. Thanks for watching. Those were 10 secrets King Charles will take to his grave. Stick around for more content and look around the channel. I don't know how to outro on Rich Life. Peace!